I'm Renee. This channel is Renée. I'm an American who moved to France in the summer of 2024 after having had the lifelong dream of living in the country of my great grandparents' birth. They had immigrated to the US via Canada many, many moons ago. And I had carried this lifelong dream of living here. So in this channel, we talk a lot about transition, choosing your dreams, the difficult process of transition. My background, I've worked in program and project management for a couple of decades now, and helping to facilitate large change initiatives in some of the world's biggest corporations. So I've got a lot of expertise in change. So we talk in this channel about navigating change, choosing our dreams, and being supported as best we can be through that process. In last week's video, I talked about that place in the middle of the process of transition that requires a bit of surrender. It's that rudderless place where you've left what you knew and you don't quite have the identity of the old. Today, I want to talk about something that happens specifically during that phase that I don't think it gets talked about. I don't think that we prepare for it. I didn't. Um, I don't think I'm generally different than anybody else. I didn't prepare for it. Even knowing what I know about the process of transformation, I didn't prepare for it. So today we're going to talk about loneliness showing up in the process of transition. I hope you will enjoy this video. If you do, like and subscribe. Definitely appreciate that. If you know of anyone going through their own transformation that might be experiencing this and may be helped by this video, I would also please ask that you share. And hopefully we can spread the assistance far and wide. So off into today's video. So why does big change create loneliness? Well, first of all, your old world begins to loosen. In my case, I left my old world somewhat behind. Obviously, I still have connections to it, but not simply rooted as deeply as I had been when I was living in that old world. Your new world hasn't really formed yet. We haven't developed new routines. We're still kind of figuring things out. We find ourselves in this middle space that is really the most difficult space to stick through transition, because you're not who you were, but you're not who you're becoming yet either. So sometimes people from your old life don't quite know how to relate to you anymore. Through this process of transition, I ended up losing certain friendships. They just couldn't understand my need for the change, I don't think. I don't want to speak for them. That's my experience of losing the friendship. They just couldn't connect to me in the same way that they had in the past. I needed to be able to connect to them differently. And I think that kind of ended up in some friendships falling away. Other friendships have adapted, and we've found a new beautiful layer of friendship. And those friendships I'm very grateful for, because when the loneliness strikes in the middle, they become very important to kind of help you through that. Your new life is still taking shape. So the people, while you might be meeting new people, you're not as close to them yet. You're not as established. They don't know you well enough yet to have that kind of loneliness feeling not go away during that middle period. Um, and you're in your own process of transformation. Um, I chose to move to a different country, and I identified a lot with the country that I was moving to because of the exposure that I had growing up from my great grandparents and my grandparents. But I never imagined how France would change me as a person. So through that change, like I was becoming someone different and new. So that all ends up leading to creating this perfect recipe for feeling lonely during this period because you don't have those old connections the way you had them, or that's starting to shift. You don't have new ones established yet. And um, and you're going through your own transformation, which can feel pretty isolating when you're going through it. And then when you add in being in a new country where you're learning things every day, and it's a new language, adds in a whole other layer. Loneliness is showing up big time. So I want to talk more about that today. Um, yeah, hang with me. Let's talk a little bit specifically about being an expat. Um, One of the things that when you start over somewhere new, in a new country, in a new language, you begin to realize how much of your identity was wrapped up in where you were, who you were, what you were doing in that place. Um, and even in your relationships that you had, those relationships were built on likely many years of knowing each other. There's this shared history in those relationships that brings a sense of ease until you begin to shift. And that can be difficult for some people. Even when you move cities, that can happen. You end up losing connection with people you knew before, and yet you still have to develop new friendships, new relationships in that new place. Leaving careers can be the same thing, changing companies can be the same thing. Culturally, companies are they're like big family units, sometimes dysfunctional, often dysfunctional, but it's still a family unit. So when you leave that unit and you go somewhere else, you've got to figure out how this new unit works. And so this becomes this transition period that's difficult to navigate through. You change through that process. Um, and being an expat when you are like, the culture is entirely different. Um, your interactions are different. There's different expectations of your interactions. Then you've got language as a challenge. You don't understand how anything works. Everything is an exercise in researching to figure out how things work. How can you, how do you, how do you get a driver's license? How do you license your car? How do you get car insurance? How do you open a bank account? Like all the millions of things. I did an earlier video of all of the things that I accomplished in year one of my move to France. if you want to know like the challenge of those things in the year, take a look at that video. I also compiled a downloadable list. It's daunting, the list. So you're dealing with all of that at the same time that you're losing some of the connection to your old life. The connections that you do have that are going to remain are changing because you're changing. You're figuring out all of this stuff and you have to do all of this stuff. And yet, the connections that you have in your new place aren't quite deep enough to feel super supportive. If something has gone hugely wrong, you might not turn to those people yet. You might not feel like you know them well enough yet to turn to them if in a really difficult situation, perhaps. So those connections aren't deep enough yet. So I think oftentimes when we see people move to a country um, and the move fails, they decide to pack up and go home. It's because they're in this middle. The loneliness kicks up, all of the things are going on, and it can become very overwhelming and feel very isolating. Like you don't feel like you can really turn to anyone. Your old people aren't going to understand the challenges that you have because they don't have any context around some of the to-do list items of an expat, particularly in your first year. And yet some of your new friends may have or may not, depending on whether they're expats also, but you may not feel close enough to them yet. So the expat experience, that first year is a daunting one for expats. And I feel like I did not prepare myself well enough for that middle phase, even though I prepared a lot and I knew that I was going to have to really push myself. I'm not naturally an extrovert. I'm much more of an introvert. I always refer to myself as more of a dinner party size person. I like when there's a few people around and we can have deep conversation and really explore topics. But I'm not really an extrovert, so to speak, in the traditional sense. Um, so I knew I was going to have to push myself to meet people, to establish friendships. And I knew that that would be a struggle, particularly as I was learning French at the same time. So I had conversations with myself around integrating and really committing to the process of integration. But I didn't expect this layer of loneliness that would show up in the middle. And thankfully, I had wonderful friends that stayed connected, that as I changed, they were curious about the change and have come along through the change with me. And that was helpful when the loneliness struck. Obviously, staying deeply rooted in my connection to my children was hugely important during that phase. So, uh, expats, if you are thinking about moving abroad, prepare yourself for this phase in the middle where everything is going to feel uncertain. It's going to feel very chaotic and you don't really feel like you have anyone to turn to. And you will go through that. It does end, that phase does end. You walk out of it on the other side, but prepare yourself for this phase where loneliness can show up. I mean, there have been times where I would land in a place that I wanted to explore. And typically I would get to a place and you get a feeling of a place. And I would know within a day or so, sometimes in an hour or so, whether I felt like I would belong there. And if I felt like I didn't belong, suddenly I'm committed to living a month in a place that I don't feel like I belong. And I've got this loneliness going on. I'm in the midst of all of this change, and it it was tough. Like I said, I had to lean on friendships, lean on connections with family, and but I also leaned on going inside. I really, during the worst of it was when I started to pick up mandala painting, and I got really into painting mandalas as a meditative practice. And it was such a calming thing to do during that transition. So, if you're going to be an expat, make sure that you've got something that can help support you, distract you, calm you down during those periods where it's going to feel really, really lonely to get through a day. Yeah. Next, I want to talk about the hidden gift of loneliness. In the last segment, I talked a little bit about how loneliness led me to beginning to paint mandalas. Um, it was an absolute gift to pick up that practice. The other thing, the loneliness led me to was more reflective time with myself. I started writing more for myself, um, being more reflective. I think in the blogs that I was writing, I write a blog and have for a number of years now. And so I felt like I could turn to my writing. Um, I have taught an automatic writing practice called Writing Wisdom. And I turn to that practice. It's an automatic writing practice where, for me, I feel like I um, end up channeling the voice of I would call it the voice of my dreamer. It's really the voice of my soul onto the page. And in doing that during this period of loneliness, I learned a lot more about myself. I felt like I got more connected to hearing my own inner voice again. I felt like my own intuition got much more acute during this time, because I was able to really begin to care for myself, to slow down, care for my body, care for my spirit, stay in connection, and then all of that inner wisdom began to blossom. So there was a huge gift in this period of time. I got to spend more time in reflection with myself to really learn what matters to me and what doesn't matter to me. And then during this time, also, I began to build um, new connections with people that kind of match who I am. Um, Loneliness, I want to make sure that you know loneliness is a temporary condition. It will not stick around forever, but it can be a gift. It can be truly meaningful if you allow it to redirect you inside to reflect on yourself and what you need and what this transition is supposed to gift to you. So, a big gift for me in loneliness was getting more in touch with myself, develop my own inner wisdom again, reconnecting to it, reconnecting after all of the busyness of getting ready for the move. I hadn't been taking care as much of my spiritual practices, my intuitive practices, all of those things, I got reconnected to all of those practices. I picked up mandala painting as a meditative practice. Love it. Wrote more. So, whatever the things are that might support you being with you, make sure you have some of those things around, and can spend time in that way, whatever that is for you, because this middle ground, it can be a real gift, if you're prepared to allow it to be. Okay, I want to make sure that if you are watching and you are in the middle of change, you're in this transition, and you have found yourself in this middle no man's land where you don't have the old life and you can't quite see the new life, and you are feeling lonely while changing your life, know that it doesn't mean that you made the wrong decision. It simply means that you're between the old and the new. You're on this journey of transformation. Support yourself in the journey of transformation. It's not wrong, it's perfectly right. And you're in the part of the journey that can provide the most growth, the most benefit, and yeah, and the most dramatic shifts that you can possibly imagine. So enjoy that journey. In closing, I want to leave you with a I want to leave you with the thought that sometimes the quiet spaces that show up in our lives, those they can tug at us because we feel like it should be something else. It should be filled with, I don't know, with getting together with friends or activity or busyness or whatever. Um, Particularly if you're an American who has lived your entire life in that productivity engine that runs culturally within that country. As you begin to slow down and you find yourself in this middle ground with all of this space, it can be really disconcerting. But know that this space has the largest gift for you, and you are in a space of opportunity. You're in the space of your new life, your new version of you quietly beginning to take shape and form and inform you. So fight the urge to chuck it all and run back home. Fight that urge, because you're really at the precipice of the best part of the journey. So I encourage you to stay with it, take care of yourself, look inside, find out what your internal voice, not that little voice that's telling you to pack your bags and go home, the higher voice that speaks very lovingly to you. What is that voice saying to you? What is that voice challenging you to build in this new life? That's the voice you want to hang on to through this transformation. And that's the voice that is going to pull you out and through this phase of loneliness, this middle phase um, that is only temporary. So stay with it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. This video is part of a series called My Powerful Year, as I make 2026 my theme year of living in my own power. I have the theme word for the year powerful. Um, so during this year, I'm going to be exploring all of the ways that my own living in my own power shows up, how I navigate those things, those challenges. Some of them have already shown up. I'll be speaking about those throughout this year. So if you want to also commit to living your most powerful self in 2026, I hope you will subscribe, follow along, and let me know in the chat how living in your own power is showing up for you. I'll leave it there. Have a great day. A biento.